Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however, wherever, whenever you're listening. This is the Root for Wisconsin show, episode 169, coming at you from the Riverwood Gallery Studio in De Pere, Wisconsin. I'm host, producer Eric Fisher. Joining me this week, no one. It's just me tonight. That said, we do have a jam-packed interview with RPW owner and promoter Rich Buchholz, which will take place here at the back end of the show. If you're listening to the show after the comeback last week, you may notice something. We are monetized. So, as always, we've always appreciated you telling your friends, being a friend, telling a friend, letting people know about the show. So, we've appreciated that up to this point, but now, really for sure, we're going to be asking you to, let your people know, let your friends, family know, give the show a listen, give it 2 listens. Because we're trying to make this show bigger and better and possibly go out on a final note. We'll see. We're still working on that, but it is what it is. So tonight, just me here for a little bit before I talk to Rich. A couple things we want to talk about. We always usually start off with our friends over at RPW. We talk about that pretty heavily here at the back end of the show. So I'll leave that to that part of the show when we talk to Rich Buchholz at the end. But again, be sure to listen a couple times if you can, maybe 2-3 times. Get those listens up. We do appreciate every listen, every share, and it even goes a little further now. Don't know how much. I can't imagine it's going to make much of a fruitful endeavor financially, but you never know. Maybe it gets us in a position where we can market this thing a little bit better. Maybe it gets in a position where we can book some bigger talent, get some more giveaways. Who knows? World is our oyster. But it starts with, obviously, us doing the show, which, I'm sitting here solo tonight, so I guess we'll see. But it also goes to you, the listeners, where you only go as far as you take us. So thank you for supporting us up to this point, and your continued support goes a long way, longer than you even know. So, again, thank you for hanging out. This is a part of the show where usually we'll go around the table and talk about our root fors and our noogies. And since I'm the only one here, I'll go first and go with it from there. Starting with my root for this last week, really a jam-packed 7 days of sports. And talking with Sean last week on the show, we had talked about the Brewers, the Packers, the Badgers, Luxembourg Casco, and really kind of that same feel. Now, the Brewers, they have officially clinched the NL Central for a 3rd straight year. They're going to be representing the National League Central as a division winner. They have also clinched a first-round bye, so we don't have to worry about that pesterouous opening round, wildcard round of the playoffs, which is always a positive because, as a whole, that's been the bugaboo of the Brewers. The NLDS has not really been a problem. Brewers are going straight to the NLDS instead of worrying about a best 2 out of 3, where your season can be over in like 2 days. Within about 27 hours, your season can be over. Not the case this year. Brewers will be hosting that opening round of the NLDS games 1 and 2, and potentially game 5 if necessary. Should it be necessary? I hope it's not. I don't foresee it being the case, but we'll see if that ends up being the case. So Brewers getting the job done. Luxembourg Casco getting the job done last week out at home against Sheboygan Falls. A 44-6 win for the Spartans. Myself, Ramsey Thompson, our own beloved Ramsey, on the call on that one. Absolute blast calling that game with him. A 44-6 win for the 6th-ranked team in Division III, according to Bound Wisconsin. And I can't say enough how exciting watching those games and watching these athletes now for my 3rd straight season as they've developed and really become leaders and incredible players, now contending for ideally another trip to Madison. Time will tell on that, but they have done their part so far. A 5-0 start for the Spartans, and being justified with that number 6 ranking in the division across the state of Wisconsin, according to Bound Wisconsin in the Coaches Bowl. So that's definitely one that has been something fun to take in and just see that growth there. Packers, they didn't really do so hot. We kind of saw they got out to that lead, 10-0 lead, or excuse me, a 3-0 lead that turned into a 10-0 lead against the Browns, and ended up watching that one tick away. So talk about that in just a few minutes before we get to Rich. But yeah, definitely not a positive there. And the Badgers, man, that's going to bring me to my Tyler Hero Noogie of the Week. And I've got 2 of them. We'll start with the world of sports. The Badgers football program. I don't even really have words for it at this point. I mean, we talked last week on this show, Sean and I did, about how there's really not a great reason as to why they suck. And when we talked about that, you talk about the academic standards, you talk about potentially not as much NIL money being available, you talk about, a host of things, and the academic standards have been there since the day they started. I don't, as easy as it is to blame those haven't been a problem. It really comes down to 2 things. One, it's NIL, where maybe not getting that same support they had in the past. I don't know if that's the case. Obviously you're not necessarily playing for scholarships per se. I mean, those still do exist, but you're playing for that cash, and depending on what Wisconsin boosters are offering and the collective is offering versus other schools, really the biggest problem, in my opinion, is that Wisconsin's really kept status quo, and it's easy to blame Luke Fickell. It's easy to point out that maybe he wasn't the hire that they should have made. They should have kept Jim Leonard. I know I've seen that around social media. That I couldn't disagree more with. I think Jim Leonard would probably be in the same situation. The writing was really on the wall with Paul Chryst. Jim Leonard probably speeds it up a little bit. I think we're still in the same boat. And now, if the Badgers athletic program does have to fire Fickell, which a number of fans are already calling for, then it's a lot more stomachable to fire that guy versus having to fire Jim Leonard, the homegrown talent, the former Badger, that really, if I'm being honest, didn't really do much to earn the job when he was the interim after Paul Chryst got fired. So, it's an easy request, but I think we were going to be here with Paul Chryst, with Jim Leonard, now with Luke Fickell. The Badgers just haven't kept up in the NIL world, transfer portal world, and I don't know how you fix that, whether it be maybe hitting rock bottom before building up, or having to, make a change, whether it be, firing Fickell and finding somebody new. I don't think that's the solution. I think there's a bigger problem at play, but we'll see. But the Badgers definitely deserving a noogie, going into that game as a 10-point favorite against Maryland at home, and getting absolutely dog-walked. It's 27-10 loss at home. Really, it's a 27-3. They get a garbage time touchdown at the end. Just ass. That's what they were. They were terrible. They were overall just not. It was tough to watch, and I'm glad I had a lot of other plans going on for the majority of the day Saturday that I didn't have to subject my eyes to that game. My other noogie this week, and I like to kind of balance the world of sports and non-sports when it comes to my noogies. I'm going to give a noogie here to Taco Bell. Now, I love Taco Bell. I just said to start the show that this is a monetized program, and maybe one day Taco Bell will be a sponsor. I would love that, probably more than just about anything. You can ask Secretary Shauna. I am always craving Taco Bell. Sean, Ramsey, myself, Secretary Shauna, we've had a number of late nights that end with Taco Bell. Dylan as well, for that matter, too. So, definitely a big Taco Bell advocate, but where Taco Bell's going to get the noogie for me this week, and this is probably reading way too much into a situation, as I tend to do. But Taco Bell, man, you're going to come at me with this Y2K special menu. And on the surface, man, I couldn't be happier about this. You got the 7-layer burrito back. You've got the caramel apple empanada. You've got all these other... I'm just pulling up my app right now. Maybe I'll head my way over there here in a little bit. But you've got so many different things and these exclusives with the special menu, the Decades menu they've called it, the Cool Ranch Doritos Locos Taco, the Double Decker Taco, the Chili Cheese Burrito, Double Decker Taco Supreme. All these options you're calling your Y2K menu, and you're not giving the Y2K prices, man. That's a tough ask for the caramel apple empanada to be $2.99 for a glorified apple pie. Those are $2 for $1 at McDonald's, or at least they were last time I looked. I could be wrong on that, but it's really gone downhill, and these escalated prices when you have a menu but you're not given that 2000s $19.99 price. It's a big thumbs down. It's a noogie for me. It's just a gimmick. Bring back these items that really no excuse to not make, if we're being honest. You know, especially the tacos and burritos. I mean, it's just a different combination of stuff to put together that the majority of the time you already have. So let's stop with making this a bigger deal than it probably should be. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Taco Bell as my other noogie for the week. With that, this is where we would do a Wisconsin web story of the week. And last week we talked about the various Oktoberfests around the state, and had mentioned I had planned to go to the one in Green Bay. Plans ultimately fell through, but definitely, good times had by most who went to those. I hope they had an absolute blast, but didn't end up making it last weekend. But this week for our Wisconsin web story of the week, it's honestly kind of been one of those weeks where it's been a pretty serious week in the news, and so many different things happening. Really tough to find a fun story in that, but we're going to do it. And this week, how about we go to my friends over at Door County Daily News? We're going to go... Here's a positive one. The Northern Door Children's Center celebrating their community with a ribbon cutting. Brick by brick, you see the Northern Door Children's Center in Sister Bay grow to meet community needs. They had opened a $3.6 million facility, indoor-outdoor classroom, expanded kitchen, library, and administrative office spaces before cutting the ribbon out at that event. Tim Coles with the coverage over on DoorCountyDailyNews.com. Good friend of the program, Tim Coles, so shout out to him. And really, again, just a very positive story for that Northern Door area, in my opinion. I'm sure probably some people, there's probably some negative concept to it, but I'm not going to give them the time of day on this one. Focusing back on the world of sports, if we're looking around the state of Wisconsin, Badgers thankfully on an off week. I don't know if I could do another Saturday of Badger football with how bad things are. Brewers, they are really one game away from clinching the MLB's #1 overall seed. It's really, in my opinion, a formality at this point. They just need a Phillies loss or to take one out of the next 3 games against the Reds. The Reds, for their efforts, they did win again tonight. And the bottom half of the NL playoff is going to be really interesting these last 3 days as you're listening to this. The Mets, Reds, and Diamondbacks all separated by a game and a half. As we record this, or as I record this, the Mets lead the Cubs 3-0. The Reds did do their part. They won earlier today. They could go into a tie with the Mets for that wild card spot, and I believe the Reds do hold a tiebreaker over the Mets. I could be wrong on that. I got to double check as I'm going through this. But yeah, the Brewers do have that top seed, one of those top 2 seeds locked up, and are again, a formality away from locking up the number 1 overall seed in the National League playoffs and the MLB should they make it the World Series. So plenty of October baseball hopefully coming up for the Brewers for that wild card spot. The Cubs are locked in. The Padres are locked in. They're kind of more of a battle of seeding. The Reds do have the tiebreaker over the Mets. So Reds coming to Milwaukee for a 3-game set starting tonight on Friday. As I record this tomorrow, but tonight as you're listening, hopefully. 3-game set for the Brewers against the Reds. And for the Mets, they are a 3-game set against the Miami Marlins to end the season. So the Miami Marlins already eliminated from contention, 77-81, kind of in the middle of the National League. But red hot as of late. They're 8-2 in their last 10, so maybe they could be playing spoiler against the struggling Mets. The Mets have struggled as well. They've gone 5-5 over their last 10. Cincinnati is 7-3 coming into play tomorrow against the Brewers. So something's got to give. Brewers just need one more win, and that does a couple things. One, it gives them the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs. Obviously, you want to play at home as much as you can. Get those last at-bats, the cardiac crew. We've seen them have the comeback victories throughout the season. Always great to be on the good side. Obviously, actually, let me rephrase that. The best spot to be in is not needing to have a comeback and just being up and not needing to bat in the bottom of the 9th. But if you can't be doing that, getting to bat in the bottom of the 9th is the second best place to be because you get to end the game on your terms. So definitely looking for the Brewers to wrap that up. Also, with a win, all it takes is one win, and they will have officially clinched a franchise record for the most wins in a season. Already at tying the all-time lead with 96. One more clinches that could potentially get to 99, which has obviously never been done in franchise history because 96 has never been done, or 97's never been done, so 98, 99 have never been done either. But all in all, could not be more excited about the Brewers starting the postseason and getting that few days of rest, watching the wild card teams beat up on each other and seeing who they end up playing. Season ended today. As I'm recording this, they would host the winner of the Padres-Cubs series, which would be the 4 and 5. Unless the Mets would be able to take down the Dodgers in that 3 seed or whoever ends up winning that 6 seed. We'll see. That's gonna be one of those where whoever ends up in that last seed gonna be having to play some pretty good baseball coming into that, and very well could be in an upset position and see how things end up going for that end up seeding. But as of right now, Cubs in the 4, Padres in the 5. Those two teams both locked into the playoffs, and just a matter of figuring out who is going to be the 6. Flipping over to the NFL, Green Bay Packers. Yeah, it was a tough one this last week. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Cleveland's defensive line really good. Really made it tough on the Packers' patchwork offensive line. Took it to the Packers. Green Bay ends up getting the field goal blocked, which you can also kind of point to the offensive line not being able to block what would have been the go-ahead field goal with about 30 seconds left. Ends up going back to the Browns. They get a pretty decent return on that blocked field goal. And end up kicking the game winner. One of those, kind of a humbling win. You need those sometimes. At this point, you're just kind of thankful it was an on the road game. It was against an AFC team. Really shouldn't come into tiebreaker modes, whether it be for division standings or conference standings, what have you. So a loss that's tough, but very humbling. Really the biggest downside was the Jordan Love interception, which you can even kind of defend as you watch it back. It's one of those that you can see what he was thinking, and somebody was a miscommunication. I don't know if it was Tucker Kraft running the wrong route or Jordan Love anticipating what he was supposed to run, and it was an option play. It could have been either one, but a loss nevertheless to the Browns. Packers at 2-1. They're on the road again before the bye week against the Cowboys, and it's the Kenny Clark versus Micah Parsons revenge games. Green Bay comes into this one a 6.5-point favorite on the road on Sunday Night Football. Dak, the Cowboys come into this one at 1-2. They've had really kind of a tough go to start the season. They took a loss to the Bears 31-14 this last week. They beat up and had to actually go to overtime against the Giants, who just benched Russell Wilson a week ago or after last week, and then lost the season opening game against the Eagles to start the season. So 1-2, very tough 1-2, and just, if Caleb Williams can tear up a defense, I feel like this should be a good bounce back for Jordan Love and the Packers. Get the bye week at 3-1. Feel pretty good about yourselves heading into it. So really, I really don't love the early bye. I'm definitely more of a later bye week advocate, but it's a young team. You want to see them playing their best football come November, December, January, ideally February, but we'll see. We'll get there when we get there, but for now, wrapping up September with Sunday Night Football, all eyes on the Packers, 6.5-point favorites. This isn't gambling advice because really we don't have a sponsor for that. Otherwise, it could be, or it could be a pick that we would have as a partnership. But I'm going to pick the Packers too. I think they cover that 6.5. I don't foresee Dallas being able to keep up, and I think Michael Parsons gets his revenge in that revenge game. I'm going to predict a sack or two for him. And Rashawn Gary among the league leaders in sacks, so I think he might get home for one as well. We'll see. Packers should win that one, though. I feel pretty confident in a bounce back week ahead of the bye. So that's really going to pretty much do it for the show this week. We've got Rich Buchholz coming up. We'll talk to him to wrap this thing up. But in the meantime, I'm Eric. You might hear an ad or two here. Do appreciate if you listen to the ads, maybe support them as well. Last week, if I'm not mistaken, I think last week it was don't drink and drive, don't do drugs and drive. Obviously, a pretty good message there here in Wisconsin. Drive safe, find a sober ride, all the stuff that goes with that. Together, we can achieve no preventable. What was it? No preventable deaths in Wisconsin. But yeah, tell a friend. Let us know, and we'll talk to Rich about RPW Destiny V that's coming up this weekend, and you can see us out there. All right, joining me now is the owner and booker, promoter of Ragin Pro Wrestling. We've had him on before. He returns. It's RPW own Ragin Rich Buchholz. Rich, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely. Always a blast to talk shop with you, and we have a big event coming up this weekend. Arguably, you could say it's probably the biggest event in RPW history.
I would definitely say it's the biggest event that we've ever had. I've never had a show before where we planned it for over a year.
So let's start with that, and let's go into the planning phase because there's obviously a lot that goes into booking the shows, and always changing and evolution and whatnot. And we've kind of talked about this before, but you talk about planning a year out.
Yeah.
What does that process look like?
So the process is very hard because we never ran the Champion Center before. So we're the first ever company to be in the Champion Center. So of course we want to make it the best show possible for them. And the way you do that is by trying to get as much top tier talent as you can a year out. The unfortunate part of that is that you're going to have people that commit to it and then have to cancel due to, hey, they got signed by TNA, they got signed by Ring of Honor, they got signed by whoever, and they're unable to do the show because 12 months ago they were free. Now they're not. Um, we had Cora Jade on the show originally, and she canceled due to mental health, which um, everyone's got their own feeling on it. That's totally fine. Like, we wish her nothing but the best. So,
Yeah, and let's kind of dig into that. So, it's something I always want to ask you because there's so many of these matches that can change even really up to the day of.
yep,
So, you had the Cora Jade, Elena Black situation where she's booked, decided to take a step away from wrestling at first briefly. Now it seems like it might be forever. Then you book a match with Story Denali,
yep,
who also kind of in a different route. She goes and gets herself a bigger gig.
yep.
And, that's kind of always the hope and the risk of RPW. But, we've had times where day of you're announcing making new matches. So I guess kind of going into that when you're booking talent, that far out and things again, always subject to change, but even like I said,
Yep.
in those days of, I guess how much pressure do you have kind of internally to keep the people on the card that you have and kind of work around that happening?
The problem you're going to have for how I do it is we fly in so many people that we're depending on the airlines not to be late. We're depending on not having hotel issues. We're depending on not having a breakdown of a car from Detroit or Chicago or Minneapolis. There's a lot of different variables that we have that other places don't have. And it comes with calculated risk. Like there's times where it's very beneficial to do how we do it, and there's times where it's a sacrifice. So the best way to announce it as like a baseball philosophy would be we're kind of like the David Ortiz. Like if you put us in left field, we could have some issues. Um, but if you put us as the DH, we're probably going to hit a home run a lot more than any other things.
So then, even going to that, one of the things that I don't think it's talked about enough um, is the talent that is in this area, in the immediate kind of area, the
Yep.
local wrestlers who, you kind of can, I don't want to say that you want to have to do this, but are very much talented enough that they can step in and kind of a moment's notice if need be, show up to the show and put on a great match for the fans.
Oh, 100%. And like next year, we're adding events that is going to be pretty much based around a lot of Northeast Wisconsin and Minneapolis and Detroit and Chicago. So there's going to be a lot more opportunities. Um, we just have to try and get as many people in as possible. That's the hard part is we have such a big waiting list that it's hard to keep saying no to people. Like the last time I counted, we had over 150 people that have never worked for RPW that still want to work for RPW.
And kind of let's touch on that for a moment as well. You have that list, and I know you've made the Facebook post from RPW, mentioning kind of
Yep,
having staff on hand just to get people to a show with
yep.
some of these other wrestlers. I guess kind of what's the thought on that and getting them at least in the building if they're not wrestling a match?
If they're not wrestling a match, so like you're talking about people that are not booked, correct?
Yeah, I gotta remember the exact post, but um
So like you're like as far as like that we allow wrestlers, referees, etc. They want to
yeah,
come.
yeah.
So pretty much So pretty much what we do is we don't comp people. And the reason we don't do it is because it's kind of the way I look at it, it's a wedding philosophy. It's who do you not invite? And that's the problem you have if you do that comping stuff, because if you comp this person, don't comp this person, you're gonna have an issue. So you're better off just being straight on none.
Yeah, that is one of the, the hardest parts of wedding planning is who gets the invite, who doesn't, where do you start making cuts? So I can definitely speak to that, getting married last summer. Um,
Yeah.
so let's look at the card itself. I mean, there's plenty of matches on this card to go through. So where do you want to start with this RPW Destiny V card?
You pick a match, I will talk about it.
All right, so let's start with probably the one that's probably one of the ones that's changed the most. Casey Lennox, Jordan Blue. That's the one, we kind of mentioned, we kind of teased. That
Yep.
I believe that was the one that Elena Black was supposed to be scheduled on, but no,
Nope.
not.
Different one. Casey and Jordan been that way forever.
Okay.
The one that's been changed multiple times is actually Stacy versus Leela Hall.
Okay, so what do we got
Because
on that one? Let's start with that
okay,
one. We'll go to Casey and
yeah.
Jordan after that.
Okay, so pretty much what ended up happening was originally Maggie Lee was booked for the show. Um, we knew probably back in, I don't know, February, March, somewhere in there, that she had a contract with TNA. And I know enough people in TNA that know their schedule and knew that they were running a show on September 27th. I'm like, there's a good chance you're going to get pulled. And sure enough, talked to her probably June, and it was official that she got pulled. And I'm like, okay. Um, so then we had Elena Black with that match. Elena Black pretty much just stopped wrestling for mental health reasons in July. So then it was we just were pretty much going Lily ended up changing her match like 3 or 4 times and she ended up having to cancel. We added Laney to that match. It was and then we were gonna add Story Denali versus Stacy by themselves, but then when Story got had to cancel, then we were gonna do Stacy Shadows versus Lily versus Lady in a triple threat match, and then there was all the cancellations, and it was quite a headache. Um, Leela Hall is gonna be great. We're very excited to have her on. We do have her booked for another show next year, so it's kind of an early preview.
And Stacy, the newly crowned RPW Women's Champion,
Yep.
she had that brutal cage match against Casey Lennox. So we'll transition it there. That's how
Yep.
pros do this thing.
Yep.
So Stacy, the new champion. Casey Lennox, though, getting a pretty solid match in return, her RPW return, going against Jordan Blue, a talent who's been around here as well.
Yes. Jordan Blue is from the West Coast. Not many people around here use her. I don't know why. Like, she's been very, very cool to us. We're doing an after party at the bar. First time ever for RPW. We're having an after party with Casey Jordan where we're having food and soda and stuff like that for fans that want to come and stuff like that. So definitely do that if you want to. But it's going to be a really good match. It's kind of the way we looked at it when we did it was it's very similar to the effect of UFC meets WWE um, after after show, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So that's kind of how we came up with the after party logic of UFC does the whole fight thing to preview the fight, and then WWE does like the after show.
You're not gonna pull a WWE SummerSlam and have a no press conference after bringing Brock Lesnar back, are you? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
All right. Looking down the card here, next match I'm seeing is Trevor Lee and Hayden Backlund.
Yep. Okay, so Trevor Lee used to be Cameron Grimes in WWE. He was also Trevor Lee in TNA. He's been around for a really long time. He's very good wrestler. Hayden Backlund is a very good heel. That match could steal the show very easily.
Yeah,
I'm
this
looking
is
forward to that match.
certainly one of those as a fan that kind of seeing it on the card, it's one of those that definitely sticks out to me.
Yep,
That's going to be very exciting. Really excited for that one. We go down the card to the next one. We got Brick McCarthy, Nick Colucci. Brick McCarthy just dropped the title in his last
yep,
time out. Nick Colucci in that just brutal, bloody cage match as well that we saw last time out.
yep.
So just kind of talk about, I mean, you have two, I would say bigger guys, not necessarily me big, but bigger guys that this is going to be a slobber knocker.
I would agree 100%. And I mean, like with Nick Colucci's cage match, I can definitely testify it's very hard to get out of that cage. Like nobody told me when I went into it that the middle rope and bottom rope were bungeed together,
Sure.
and nobody told me that. And so I'm trying to climb in and I fall through because I'm like, well, this is fun. Because like I was assuming they were climbing over the cage,
Sure.
and they're like, yeah, we gotta go for the door. I'm like, good luck.
Yeah, I was gonna,
Hopefully,
kind of just touching on that. That was to announce the Hall of Fame induction of
yep,
RPW's own uh, Mike Mercury, sound guy Mike, uh,
yep.
Gillette native. So shout out to Mike on that one as well. But getting you both of you guys in that moment at the last show again, surprising him. I mean, you give him a pretty much a rundown and still had no idea it was coming.
He had no idea. We um Devin knew about it, Derek knew about it, Casey knew about it, and I knew about it. That was it. Like we keep everything very low key. And because I like that natural feel, I don't like the force feel. So like he was intrigued because he's like, hmm, this could be me. When Devin started like typing it up because like Mike was looking around kind of and like we didn't tell his daughter. So like his daughter took off for a little bit to go get concessions and missed it.
Oh
So I'm
no.
like, I felt a little bad about that, but
Yeah, so that cage definitely tough to get out of.
yes, yes,
All right, looking down the card, next match here on that I'm seeing, I have Ethan Matthews and Ethan Everhart.
yep. That'll be the opening match of the show. Um, I was intrigued when we booked it just because of the names.
Ethan
Pretty
versus
much,
Ethan, EN
yeah.
versus AN.
And they're about the same size. We've had Ethan Everhart in before. He had a really good match back. I believe it was Redemption 3, I want to say, something like that.
Sure.
It was March 16th show. It was the Ken versus Rampage Santana show.
Okay.
Cool. But
Uh,
yeah, should be a good match.
all right. Looking, we also have a tag match: Royal Flava and Gen Z, the dreaded Gen Z heels.
So pretty much, I can tell you that the indie wrestling experience has told me multiple times how much they love Royal Flava. Um, it's going to be a really good match.
I
I
believe I saw them at Wrestling Night at the Tim Rattler game a couple months ago.
Royal Flava,
I believe so. I could be wrong on that, but I'm
possibly,
pretty confident
possibly,
on that.
possibly. I mean, you saw Devo Knight in Wapaka, and then Alex couldn't make it,
Sure.
so he's teaming with JDX, who I know you love.
Big JDX house, big Rampage Santana house. That's the next match we're going to talk about. But yeah, we have that's definitely a tag team that I think I think it's going to be again. That's another one of those that I think having seen a lot of this talent here, very
Hmm.
well could steal the show. The Gen Z, they're
Yep.
the dreaded heels of my generation. Oh, just a little bit younger than my generation. Technically, I'm a millennial by like an inch, but and I very proudly hold on to that. Don't want to be associated with that Gen Z nonsense, and these guys are giving them a bad name. And you
I
could
can I
quote
can
me on
definitely.
that. I will tell that to their face. Actually, no. We all know how this show operates. When we're at the show, myself, Ramsey, Secretary Shauna, whoever else we got with us, we
Yep.
are all team heel. So
Sounds good.
I'll be in their metaphorical corner, even if they don't want it. Which brings us to uh, I'll let you announce this, a new belt. It looks like the RPW Warriors Championship.
Yes. So the cruiserweight title got retired. We are going to do the uh, Rage Warriors Championship, and the reason being is there's really no confusion anymore on a weight class. So like the cruiserweight, how I wanted it wasn't how it was perceived
Sure.
originally. So like we wanted it to be like a four-way every single match, and it became too difficult to do that. So then like you'd have people that were obviously not 220 and under. So then it became very like hard to call it the cruiserweight. Another title we thought of originally was the R division, but the reason we didn't do it was because it's too close to the X division
I was gonna
for
say, and
TNA.
that's also very much associated with that lightweight cruiserweight kind
Mm.
of
Yeah,
mantra. But yeah, the Warriors Championship, that one having two of our favorites here, Rampage Santana, JDX, and is that ZK47?
yep,
Okay, so that one's gonna be tough. We have two tag team allies.
yep.
We've seen Rampage and JDX team up a number of times, and
Will they
now
team
having
up
to
together?
face off. How does that come down? We'll have to see.
Yeah, will they team up or will they turn on each other or what will happen?
That's the ultimate question. That's gonna have torn loyalties for them in the ring and torn loyalties for I know Ramsey and myself at ringside. I don't know what we're gonna do. That might lead to me and Ramsey throwing hands. I don't know. I'm not gonna make any predictions, but if I had to guess, I know that one might be divisive.
So he's cheering for Rampage, you're cheering for JDX or
I
what?
don't know how we're gonna break that down yet. We'll have to do a booking meeting on the way out there, but so then, just kind of wrapping up here on the card, the RPW Heavyweight Championship match. Silas Young in his, I believe this is his second reign.
Um, yeah, technically yes, because his first one it was pretty much like the Hogan Andre situation
Sure,
where he didn't officially win because they pretty much tied,
that's
so
right.
they retained.
That's
But this is
right.
his official reign as champion, and I believe it's his first time in Appleton wrestling.
That's his hometown going against another hometown boy, if you will, in Mr.
Yep.
Anderson, aka or FKA, Mr. Kennedy, who both of these guys storied careers through the pro wrestling circuit. Mr. Anderson actually just popping up on TV again here,
He's actually in
relatively
tonight.
recently.
Yeah, he's on tonight on TNA.
So let's talk about that match here because this is one, I think, not to be hyperbolic about this, but this one definitely kind of starts on that dream match kind of discussion of two guys who again really kind of represent some of the best of the I'll call it the greater Green Bay area. I actually had to look this up for something totally irrelevant. The greater Green Bay area doesn't really necessarily
Yeah.
go south that way, but I'm going to call it that because not everybody knows where Appleton is or Two Rivers and Manitowoc. So both,
Yep.
kind of get that Green Bay mantra because they're not quite Milwaukee.
Yep.
So I'm going to extend the Greater Green Bay area. I know it's not the Wikipedia definition, but we're going to extend it here on
All good.
the Root for Wisconsin show. But really, again, kind of two of the best that the Greater Green Bay extended area gets to call their own. two very storied careers and two guys who've really had kind of their own chapters and very focal points of RPW.
Yes, I mean, Ken has wrestled for us 3 times, I believe. Silas has done, I believe, 5 or 6 shows. So this is a match that I'm one of those people that will check out their social medias. And it just so happened about a year ago, they were mentioning, yeah, we'd really like to work each other. I'm like, hmm, that could be interesting. That could be a good match. And I reached out and we had that match announced the same night that Zilla faced Khan. So, I mean, we moved up Destiny to September instead of November, but
So that's RPW Destiny V.
yep.
From what I can see, now correct me if I'm wrong. There's still some time. Balcony seats still available, correct?
Yes, balcony seats are available. There will be people able to stand on the floor. They just can't stand like in the entrance area. And there might be room for the floor bleachers. I don't know. When I did it, it was just basically 12 per, so we did like 36, 38, just to be safe of 3 sides because they have concessions on 2 of the sides. So,
So time, and that kind of leads me just talking about the wrestling industry as a whole. Uh, $10 in advance for those balcony seats, $20 at the door. One thing Sean and I talked about last week in our return to the For Wisconsin show, how WWE is kind of starting to price out their fans, uh,
100%.
whether whether it be with WrestleMania going overseas. He had mentioned the last WWE show that was in Green Bay, which was Monday Night Raw back in June.
Yep,
Him and his dad had gone, and like tickets were like $120
yep,
each.
yep.
And just I guess to that same end, RPW very family friendly ticket price to get in the door, especially when you buy in advance. What
Yep.
does that mean to you to get that, to kind of, we see the kids in the event and get younger fans and other fans just in the door who, might be feeling priced out by WWE. AEW doesn't really come this far north, so this is really among the other promotions in the area. You're seeing some of the best talent for really the best price.
We try to keep it at that price just because generally speaking, most people have 2 kids. So we try and figure four people per family. It's generally how I do it. So I look at it and go, okay, for $40, that's pretty much a night out to the theater for probably 2 people nowadays instead of 4. But at least it's something that you can do that you're not feeling like, oh my God, like we gotta work 2 whole weeks to pay for something. Like side note for WWE, because I actually said this on the Indie Wrestling Experience on Tuesday when I had my podcast. I have a credit card that's $30,000 credit limit. If you get a front row seat for WrestleMania, you can't even put it on that card.
Oh my God.
Front row seats at $38,000.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we were talking about last week, and even, I went over to our friends over at Ticket Smart, or Ticket Smarter. Want to make sure I give them proper credit. Over
Okay.
at Ticket Smarter, and even like AEW tickets. I mean, those are in the $50 to $60 range for a nosebleed, which isn't bad. But again, you're not necessarily getting that same experience.
Yeah. Well, and like, here's my example for that. Like, when I was a kid's age, we'll just say 12, I went to King of the Ring 96. That was the Austin 316 pay-per-view.
Sure.
I paid $10 for that seat in the balcony. And that stuck with me because back then you could afford to go to these events. Now, like, you can't afford to go solo, let alone go with a family, unless you're in a higher income family. So it's
Yeah.
very different. So like we try very hard on our level to make sure that wrestling doesn't go away because people are feel priced out.
And I
Like,
think I kind of said that same thing to Sean last week, and not to get into the politics or anything like that, but I know my first WWE show, what happened to be the Monday Night Raw that Donald Trump bought Monday Night Raw in Green Bay, and ended up refunding everybody's money back. And back then, I think our tickets, my dad, my brother, and I, our tickets, we were kind of in the upper section of the Rush Center. I mean, that was like
okay.
$27 in 2009. And you know, I don't know if Trump could do that these days with how much those prices are.
I mean, yeah, now it's you would probably have to. I'm trying to think what it would even cost. Like, we're probably talking just for a Raw, you're probably talking 5 million. I don't know. I'm just trying to ballpark it
Yeah, I
out.
mean it could be. And I mean we're talking second mortgages on Mar-a-Lago and the White House
Yeah.
just to refund everybody's tickets. Plus you paid for it to be commercial free that night for TV.
And that's, I mean, that's another whole avenue is the commercials are what pays for the event.
Right.
And
So
that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like when we do advertising, like I'm sure you know this too, but like if you're monetized, you have to keep doing certain stuff, otherwise you lose your monetization.
yeah, I wish we had that problem, Rich.
You
Um,
don't?
actually, no, I take that back because that is actually some newer news, a newer development where the Root for Wisconsin show through our hosting site RSS is now technically monetized. I can't imagine it'll be much, knowing our listenership numbers, but we are monetized. That started last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mine started in July.
So again, I'm not foreseeing this be a very profitable endeavor, but it's an endeavor nevertheless. We're going to try out. Last for signing up, I made a whole penny. So we'll see what happens. So this is another reminder. I said it earlier in our show. Be a friend, tell a friend, get the word out, put some money in our pocket so we can make a better show and actually incentivize my other co-hosts to show up.
There you go.
All right, Rich. So, getting back into the RPW sphere, we talked about RPW Destiny V. You
Yep,
have another event coming up, and it's another new concept for those November shows.
yep,
It's the RPW Midwest Cup,
yep.
and I know we're still a little ways out from that. Tickets obviously available currently.
Mhm.
Be
Yeah.
sure to get your tickets. I'll put the pitch out, but what I guess let's kind of talk about this in two aspects. First of all, the tournaments, tournaments kind of go hand in hand with wrestling and sports as a whole, but with the wrestling, you talked about King of the Ring.
Yep.
Um, what kind of goes into the booking side of the tournament from just a wrestling perspective first.
From just a wrestling perspective, it's the excitement of who could face who and all that stuff. Like you'd always do the scenarios. It's no different than March Madness. You're always looking and going, hey, if this person wins first match, second match, they can face this person in semifinals. And we also have that logic of we like the surprises. So when people think chalk, we think opposite. When people think upsets, we think chalk. We're always trying to get a guess.
So
And that's
then
the okay, go on.
I was just gonna say, so kind of looking at from that aspect, then going to the booking aspect where we've talked about the challenges of putting together just a single event card, let
Yep.
alone putting together now a tournament that is going to be dependent on these people being available.
So pretty much that show, I put a lot of heat on the wrestlers because I pretty much told them if you commit to the show and then you have to cancel, your opponent automatically advances. They're not going to get another opponent, which is great in theory, but it actually affects that person because we're doing it where they're getting a booking fee per match. where not everyone does that. So like they would get it for that Friday to advance to Saturday, but their first match Saturday they wouldn't get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So like they're actually probably upset if their opponent cancels.
for sure. And kind of looking through that tournament, Perseverance, Friday, November 7th, Saturday, November 8th, Big Apple and Manitowoc, Joey Avalon versus Tommy Davis, Jordan Cross versus Aries Creed, JDX versus Sam Beal, the return of Sam Beal. That's another big root for Wisconsin one. Brick McCarthy, Ryan Cross, just a physical slobber knocker there. Ethan Matthews, Miguel Allmoney, Aaron Arsenal and Josh C., Damian Chambers, Gary J., Rampage Santana, Garrison Creed. There's a lot
Yep.
of names that have a lot of familiarity within the RPW world, and some of these, again, just really set up for some great matches.
Oh, 100%. And like Sam Beal and I talk quite a bit because we're both diehard Lion fans.
Which is a
So
flaw that we'll forgive you for, but
it was a great win on Monday, but I digress.
how'd week one go? That's what I'm going to say. How'd week one go?
We'll talk on Thanksgiving. No, congratulations on your victory. I was there. I watched.
All right. So then just kind of looking at, again, just wrapping up here, Rich.
Yep.
RPW Destiny 5 this weekend, Perseverance in November. On top of, everything else going on here. But let's just kind of talk about, again, as we wrap up, mainly because Zoom's about to time us out. But just what as a whole, if you had to sell RPW to somebody who hadn't been there yet, and I always say, and Ramsey always say, it's really the best 20, 30, even $10 you can spend on a Saturday night with your buddies. How do you sell it to somebody who enjoys wrestling, but maybe hasn't come to an RPW show?
We are that top-notch company that will bring in some of the best talent that is out there currently. And the show that you go to might be their last show in RPW. They may be on TV within a couple weeks. It's definitely happened before, and that's the best way we can say it. I mean, like we brought in Chelsea versus Deanna. Chelsea's killing it in WWE now.
Deanna no slouch over in AEW either.
Like, Deanna's doing really good in AEW. Like, there's so much top talent that we've had that work for TV now. It's insane.
All right, Rich. Any other parting thoughts here as we wrap up the show this week?
If you're not doing anything this Saturday, come out to the Champion Center. It's going to be a great show. We do have Wrestling of Unicorns there, so they will be doing short clips. I got a really good feeling there could be some stuff that goes viral. I have a very good feeling. We'll go with that.
All right. Episode 169 is in the books. That's our root for this week. I'm rooting for RPW. That's where I'll be Saturday night. I know Ramsey's going to be there. We'll see who else joins us from the Root for Wisconsin show. But excited to be there. I'm Eric. That's Rich. We're out. See ya.